Top 10 gemstones that once ruled markets and vanished. There was a time when these gems not only sparkled but ruled. They were traded as currency, gifted to monarchs, and guarded as national treasures. These stones held real power, fueling exploration, shaping economies, and defining eras. But their glory did not last. Some were buried by changing fashions, others were destroyed by war, reclassified by science, or forgotten. What happened to these gems that once dominated global trade? Here are the stories of 10 stones that lit up the world and disappeared. And number 1, it disappeared at the height of its glory. Don't forget to press and hold that like button, leave a comment, and hit subscribe before we begin. Ranked 10th, Tiffany Hiddenite, the green flame that fizzled in Carolina dust, North Carolina. 1879. In a forested pocket of Alexander County, a man named William Hidden, sent by the Tiffany and Company Empire, was digging for emeralds. But he found something else entirely. A vibrant green crystal, electric and unfamiliar, glowing like a peridot, but behaving like spodumene. The world would know it as Hiddenite, named after the man himself. For a moment, it dazzled the American gem trade. Tiffany and Company promoted it as the subsequent great discovery, a domestic rival to imported emeralds, with a unique luster and crisp green hue that deepened under incandescent light. Stones over 5 carats were rare. Anything over 10 bordered on miraculous. The finest examples held a delicate pleochroism, shifting slightly from yellow-green to bluish tones depending on the angle. But the glory didn't last. Unlike emerald, Hiddenite is soft and brittle. It cleaves with terrifying ease and ranks 6.5 to 7 on the Mohs scale. Jewelers grew cautious. Then, the mines dried up. By the early 20th century, the North Carolina deposits had vanished from production. No new source matched the original quality, not Brazil, Madagascar, or Afghanistan. Today, original Tiffany Hiddenite specimens are museum-grade rarities. A 12-carat clean stone can fetch over $10,000, but they're rarely cut for jewelry. Instead, they sit under glass, green ghosts from a forgotten boom. This wasn't just a gem. It was an American dream in mineral form, brief, brilliant, and buried by time. Ranked 9th. Ceylon Moonstone, the moonlight that vanished beneath tropical soil. A century ago, travelers arriving in Sri Lanka's highland jungles often returned with something more than spice and silk, stones that seemed to hold the moon inside. Mined from alluvial deposits near Mediagoda, the finest Ceylon moonstones shimmered with a ghostly glow, a pale blue sheen drifting beneath their surface. Gem cutters called it adolescence. Locals called it a blessing. By the early 1900s, this feldspar variety had become a favorite among European Art Nouveau jewelers. Rings, brooches, and pendants lit by candlelight danced with an inner light that no diamond could mimic. The gem's appeal was romantic, almost mystical, fueled by legends that moonstones could reconcile lovers or grant prophetic dreams. At the height of its popularity, Ceylon Moonstone fetched high prices per carat, rivaling sapphires in European auctions. But moonlight, like beauty, is fleeting. Within a few decades, the rush to mine near the island's southwestern coast stripped the richest deposits bare. Global demand shifted toward harder, more durable stones. When synthetic gems emerged in the mid-20th century, moonstone's commercial allure dimmed. Cheaper feldspar from India and Tanzania, lacking the iconic blue sheen, flooded the market and diluted its prestige. Today, genuine Ceylon Moonstone is a rarity. Most surviving specimens rest in antique settings or museum drawers, their glow softened by time. Few remember the decades when this stone reigned quietly, not by brilliance, but by luminescence. Ranked 8th, Arizona Peridot, desert green that faded from the catalogs. Long before synthetic emeralds and lab-grown spinels dominated jewelry showcases, the southwestern deserts of the United States offered their verdant jewel. Hidden beneath scorched lava beds on the San Carlos Apache Reservation, Arizona Peridot emerged, not from myth, but magma. Formed 20 miles beneath the Earth's crust and thrust upward by ancient eruptions, these olivine crystals came to rest in one of the harshest landscapes in North America. In the 1970s and 80s, this Native American gemstone caught the spotlight. Its spring green color required no heat treatment. Stones from 3 to 10 carats sparkled under mall lights, commanding space in catalogs from Sears to QVC. It was proudly domestic, relatively affordable, and cut with just enough brilliance to appeal to everyday buyers across the U.S. But Peridot's popularity was built on fragile ground. The gem's surface, though vibrant, was prone to scratching, and internal inclusions made significant cuts risky. With a Mohs hardness between 6.5 and 7, it lacked the durability that modern consumers quietly demanded. Today, the Peridot fields of San Carlos still produce, but only in modest volumes. The finest pieces occasionally surface at mineral shows, often overlooked beside more exotic names. Once praised for being America's answer to imported green stones, they sit quietly behind glass, mainly known to collectors and curators. Its fall wasn't dramatic. It was quiet, the kind that happens not with headlines but with silence, as the catalog slowly stopped printing its name. Ranked 7th, Australian Chrysoprase, the green that glowed until it didn't. From the ochre veins of Queensland's Marlborough Hills, a peculiar gem surfaced in the 20th century. A quartz that glowed not with brilliance, but with color that felt alive. Infused with nickel and born of ancient volcanic fluids, Australian Chrysoprase appeared almost by accident. Its tone, soft yet vivid, like the first leaves of spring, blurred the line between gemstone and illusion. By the 1960s, European dealers had found it. German cutters shaped it into wide cabochons and sculpted beads, some as large as 1 inch in diameter, prized for their polish and uniformity. This apple green stone is affordable and fresh in the market, craving alternatives to jade and emerald. The fashion world embraced it. For a moment, the outback sang in color. Then came the silence. Marlborough's deposit proved temperamental. Interruptions from monsoons, sporadic yields, and the logistical nightmares of mining remote terrain. Consistency slipped, the market blinked, and into that hesitation flowed a tidal wave of cheaper substitutions, dyed chalcedony, chemically treated jadeite, and green glass composites. Chrysoprase, lacking a champion or certification standard, began to vanish from catalogs, not in disgrace but in neglect. Present-day discoveries exist, but rarely in commercial volume. Independent miners still chase the green across the sun-baked ridges of eastern Australia, but global demand has moved on. It's no longer a contender, only a reminder. Not every gem fades because it fails. Some disappear because no one stays to tell their stories. Ranked 6th, Idar-Oberstein Agate, the gem capital that carved itself into obsolescence. Along the Nahe River in western Germany, 2 sleepy towns, Idar and Oberstein, once pulsed with the rhythm of gemstone wheels. By the 16th century, the region had become Europe's undisputed hub for agate carving, producing cameos, intaglios, and ornaments gracing royal courts and merchant vaults. The stones, banded in red, gray, and white swirls, were quarried from local volcanic seams, then sculpted with precision unmatched anywhere on the continent. Centuries before modern gem cutters in Bangkok or Jaipur, this valley fed the luxury markets of Paris, Vienna, and Moscow. By the 1800s, even Brazil, home to vast agate deposits, was shipping its rough across the Atlantic solely to be cut by German artisans. The brand Idar-Oberstein meant heritage, mastery, and market dominance. But that reputation came at a cost. As local deposits waned, the region became increasingly dependent on foreign material. Then came industrialization, and with it, mass-produced gems, synthetic stones, and global competition. By the mid-20th century, the meticulous handwork of Idar-Oberstein had grown too slow, too costly, and too old-world for a market chasing speed and sparkle. The town still exists, and its heritage is preserved in museums and artisanal workshops. But its days as a gemstone superpower have passed. Once pulled from its hills, the agate lies mostly in antique cameos and collector drawers. Tokens of a time when craftsmanship, not carat weight, ruled the gem trade. What once shaped the world's most delicate gems now shapes only memory. Ranked 5th, Cambodian blue zircon, the electric flame that flickered out. Deep in the volcanic soils of Ratanakiri province, a gem once sparked with a brilliance that nearly rivaled diamond. Blue zircon, not to be confused with synthetic cubic zirconia, was nature's fire, an ancient crystal born of tectonic heat and time ignited by human touch through careful heat treatment. From Cambodia's mines in the mid-20th century came stones so vivid that they burned with an electric teal flash, sometimes measuring 5 to 15 carats and refracting light with a double-image dazzle. At its height in the 1960s and 70s, Cambodian blue zircon captivated Western jewelers. With prices lower than sapphire but brilliance rivaling it, zircon found its way into engagement rings, cocktail jewelry, and television home shopping networks. The trade positioned it as an affordable luxury, perfect for a post-war middle class hungry for color. But zircon's rise contained the seeds of its decline. Despite its luster, zircon is brittle, ranking just 6 to 7.5 on the Mohs scale, and prone to chipping under daily wear. Misidentification with synthetic substitutes eroded public trust. As conflicts in Cambodia escalated during the Khmer Rouge era, mining halted, exports vanished, and markets moved on. No brand championed its return, and no campaign revived its flame. Today, Cambodian blue zircon remains elusive. A few artisanal miners still extract rough and quiet provinces, but demand is sparse. Jewelers now rarely offer it. Ask about zircon in most showrooms, and you're likely to be met with confusion or a tray of cubic fakes. A gem that once electrified the 20th century market now lies in silence, outshined not by beauty, but by memory's slow decay. Ranked fourth, Bohemian Garnet, the red legacy that slipped through empire's fingers. In the hills of Central Europe, where Czech forests meet ancient riverbeds, a crimson gem once captured the soul of an entire region. These were Bohemian garnets, tiny, blood-red crystals, rarely exceeding 0.2 inches across, but cut with such precision that they shimmered like embers under candlelight. By the 16th century, they had become more than ornament. They were identity. Crafted into rosette clusters and bordered in gilt silver, Bohemian garnets adorned brooches, rings, and the bodices of aristocrats from Prague to Vienna. They were exchanged as royal gifts, sewn into officers' uniforms, and embedded in European mourning jewelry. No stone spoke more intimately of grief, power, or lineage in the Austro-Hungarian Empire. But every empire has its end. As the 20th century approached, industrialization brought imitation. India and Africa offered larger garnet varieties in bulk, and synthetic red stones began to flood European markets. The labor-intensive art of cutting Bohemian garnets, often mounted in closed-back settings to intensify their glow, couldn't compete with cheaper, faster methods. After the empire fell, so did the infrastructure that protected its gemstone trade. Today, genuine Bohemian garnet survives in vintage heirlooms and a handful of family-run workshops in Turnoff. The mines are shallow, the stones are small, and the global market barely notices. But in dusty display cabinets and velvet-lined boxes passed down through generations, its fire still flickers, dimmed but not extinguished. Some gems don't vanish because they failed. They vanish because the world changes around them. Ranked third, Baltic Amber, the frozen light that funded kingdoms. Baltic Amber, washed ashore by cold northern seas, once controlled the global gem trade for millennia. To Bronze Age chieftains, Roman emperors, and Viking traders, it was more than adornment. It was currency, medicine, and myth. The Amber Road, stretching from the Baltic coast through Central Europe into the Mediterranean, became one of the first great commercial routes of the ancient world. Fossilized resin, often enclosing insects, seeds, or fragments of prehistoric life, was bartered for gold, glass, and spices. Wealthy Roman women wore it as jewelry. Egyptian embalmers crushed it into oils for rituals. Healers ground it to treat heart, bone, and mind ailments. By the 18th and 19th centuries, amber production in what is now Poland, Lithuania, and Russia reached imperial scale. Palaces in St. Petersburg and Berlin were furnished with entire walls of it. The most famous, the Amber Room, a gift to Peter the Great, was hailed as the eighth wonder of the world. But dominance faded as demand shifted. Mass extraction led to dwindling reserves. Chemically treated resins began to mimic its glow at a fraction of the price. Soviet industrialization and post-war shifts in aesthetic taste pushed amber from aristocracy to kitsch. What once adorned queens became refrigerator magnets and souvenir keychains. Today, high-grade Baltic amber with natural inclusions still commands respect among collectors. But in the mainstream gem trade, it has become a relic. Resinous gold that once funded empires, now quietly marketed in coastal shops to passing tourists. Not all treasures fall from grace. The very world outlives some they helped shape. Ranked second, Burma Spinel, the forgotten flame of royalty. For centuries, a crimson stone gleamed at the heart of monarchs' crowns, believed to be ruby, worshipped for its fire, and passed from one empire to the next as a symbol of absolute power. But beneath that regal facade was a case of mistaken identity. The gem was not ruby. It was spinel, a magnesium aluminum oxide, born deep within metamorphic rock and shaped by geological pressures few minerals survive. And nowhere did this imposter rise higher than in Burma's Mogok Valley. Nestled among mist-veiled hills in central Myanmar, Mogok yielded blood-red spinels so vivid and saturated they rivaled, sometimes exceeded, ruby in beauty. Medieval traders had no means to distinguish them. Even today, the Black Prince's ruby in the British imperial crown is not a ruby, but a Burmese spinel, weighing over 170 carats. From the 14th to the 18th century, spinel was traded as the king of red gems. Persian emperors, Mughal rulers, and Ottoman sultans all sought it. Inscribed stones carved with royal names passed through generations like signed decrees of sovereignty, but clarity brought to collapse. By the 1800s, mineralogy had advanced. Spinel was reclassified, demoted, and rebranded, not a ruby, garnet, or spinel. Its royal legacy crumbled under the weight of scientific precision. Without marketing, spinel faded from catalogs, overshadowed by stones with bigger names and more glamorous associations. Today, fine Burmese spinel is rare and revered by connoisseurs, fetching upwards of $10,000 per carat in auctions. But outside elite circles, its name evokes little recognition. The very gem that once ruled thrones now drifts in the margins of modern jewelry cases. Ultimately, it wasn't beauty that exiled Burma's spinel, it was the truth. In first place, Kashmir Sapphire, the blue mist that disappeared too soon. Discovered by accident in the early 1880s after a landslide exposed the crystal-rich corundum seam, these sapphires stunned the British colonial officers who first saw them. They weren't merely blue, they were velvet incarnate, a saturated cornflower hue so deep and uniform it seemed backlit from within. Dealers described them as sleeping blue fire, as if the gems glowed beneath a veil of mist. Between 1882 and 1887, the world watched as Kashmir sapphires flooded select markets in Calcutta, London, and Paris. Royal families sought them. Cartier, Chaumet, and American tycoons lined up to bid. Stones as small as 5 carats commanded fortunes. Larger gems, over 10 or 15 carats, became instant legends. But just as demand reached a crescendo, the source vanished. Another landslide, another collapse. The mine was never industrialized or stabilized and was buried beneath alpine debris. By 1900, the flow had slowed to a trickle. By 1930, it had all but stopped. And so, the finest sapphire mine in history became a ghost, producing nothing but myth, mystery, and auction headlines. A 21.04 carat Kashmir sapphire sold for $8.9 million in 2007. Another, barely over 10 carats, fetched $6 million in Geneva. Yet no one has found another source to match its color, texture, or soul. Kashmir sapphire did not fade from the market. It vanished at its height, like a star that burns so brightly that it consumes itself before the world can comprehend what it witnessed. Some have disappeared beneath collapsing mines. Others have been obliterated by progress, mislabeled, or survived the shifting winds of commerce. But each of these gems, no matter how forgotten, once carried the weight of empires, the ambitions of merchants, and the dreams of those who believed in their light. Their brilliance did not vanish. They slipped from sight into heirlooms, museum drawers, and the quiet recesses of memory. In the world of gemstones, rarity is not just about geology. It is about lost stories, shifting markets, and moments in time that can never return. Let us know which resonates with you in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel for more content like this.